Daily drama, real tea, no filters, just mic drop daily. Don't forget to subscribe. Denzel Washington ain't the type to run his mouth just for likes. He's built different. This man's whole legacy is about respect, staying solid, and only speaking up when it really counts. So when talk started spreading that Denzel might have thrown shade at Oprah Winfrey for her alleged tight connection with Diddy and not in a friendly way, people snapped to attention. We're talking Denzel here, not some Hollywood loudmouth. If he's giving a side eye, you know something shady is bubbling behind the scenes. This ain't your regular red carpet drama. This is Denzel possibly calling out Oprah. That's Hollywood royalty checking Hollywood royalty. Now backtrack a little. Just a few months ago, Diddy was on top like always, throwing outrageous parties, flexing his luxury yachts, riding around in Maybachs, and surrounding himself with nothing but A-listers and flashing lights. He was living the dream and showing it off at full volume. But now, the vibe's completely flipped, and folks are connecting the dots, and Denzel's alleged dig just added gasoline to the fire. But that whole flashy empire came crashing down fast like a house of cards in a hurricane when a tidal wave of lawsuits hit Diddy straight in the chest. And these weren't just some random tabloid-level scandals. Now, the accusations were dark. We're talking extortion, drugging women, trafficking, even jaw-dropping claims involving minors. Yeah, it got real ugly. The feds didn't waste a second. They raided his properties across multiple states, dragging out boxes stacked with evidence and snatching up footage so disturbing, insiders say even the investigators were shaken, and just when it seemed like things couldn't get messier, boom. Another bombshell name slid into the mix. Oprah Winfrey. That's right, that Oprah, the billionaire mogul, the nation's life coach, the queen of empowerment who's been all about growth, healing, and heart-to-hearts for decades. So when whispers started linking her to Diddy's twisted mess, maybe even helping cover things up or rolling with the same crowd, people were stunned. It felt like finding out your beloved auntie's been living a secret life in the shadows. And this is where Denzel steps into the picture. Behind closed doors, he's reportedly had a bad taste in his mouth about Oprah for years. Not over silly Hollywood drama, but because of how she allegedly acts when the cameras stop rolling, especially towards black women in the game. To most folks, Oprah and Diddy might just seem like two big names bumping into each other at award shows. But insiders know it goes way deeper. Photos, old interviews, cozy backstage moments. They weren't just casual acquaintances, they were tight. And now people are asking, how tight were they really? Diddy even sat down on Oprah's couch, opening up about his rough childhood and hustler mindset while she smiled and nodded like she was his biggest fan. On camera, it looked like mutual respect, two titans vibing. But now, with all this new heat, people are wondering if that connection was about more than admiration. And the plot thickens. Oprah's relationships in Hollywood, they've never been random. There's a clear strategy. She cozies up to the powerful, the untouchables, until they're not so untouchable anymore. Then, she vanishes, quiet as a whisper. Let's talk Harvey Weinstein. Oprah used to praise him, hug him like they were family, smile for the cameras, all while rumors about his nasty behavior swirled in the background. But when it finally blew up, Oprah delivered a vague, polished speech about a watershed moment. No names, no accountability. Real smooth. But people saw through it. Then there's Taraji P. Henson. She nearly walked off the set of The Color Purple, a movie Oprah helped produce because she was getting severely underpaid. Sound familiar? It should. Monique called it out years ago. She too said Oprah played a role in lowballing her despite being an Oscar-winning talent. And don't get it twisted, these weren't actors begging for favors. These were powerful, award-winning black women asking to be treated fairly. Yet Oprah's name keeps popping up right in the middle of all these messy money stories. That's the double game Denzel allegedly can't ignore, the queen of empowerment uplifting women in public, but allegedly cutting them short in private. That's the side Denzel might be side-eyeing, and folks are finally starting to catch on. Oprah might wear the crown of empathy in public, but peel back a few layers and you get a whole different vibe. We're talking about quiet gatekeeping, hand-picked loyalty, and some real calculated alliances. And now that Diddy's name is swimming in some of the darkest allegations we've seen in the celebrity world, People are connecting dots they never dared to before. Denzel ain't just tossing out guesses either. He's allegedly pointing straight at a pattern that's way more twisted than most we're ready to admit. And when folks start digging into that pattern, one name keeps resurfacing like a bad signal: Monique. Her story ain't some dusty old Hollywood feud, it's the receipt that keeps coming back when people start questioning Oprah's real motives. Back in 2008, Monique gave an interview where she opened up about one of the most painful parts of her life, being abused by her own brother. It was raw, it was private, it was deep. But here's where it got real ugly. Monique had already confided in Oprah about that trauma in private. She trusted her. So imagine the shock when Oprah turned around and invited not just Monique's abusive brother, but also her estranged parents onto the show, and she didn't even give Monique a heads up. That wasn't just messy. It was betrayal disguised as compassion. For a lot of people, that moment broke the spell. If the queen of emotional healing could turn someone's deepest wounds into TV content for ratings, then what else could she be doing behind the scenes? Now, fast forward to today, Diddy's name is getting dragged not for parties or Billboard hits, but for allegations that read like a psychological thriller. And with Oprah somewhere in the shadows, the questions are only getting louder. Secret rooms, strange rituals, stacks of NDAs thicker than phone books. Every week, some new twisted layer of Diddy's world gets exposed. But what really got people's heads spinning? When his former bodyguard, Gene Deal, stepped into the spotlight and started talking, and not just about Diddy. He dragged Oprah's name into the mess too, and it shook folks hard. Gene didn't dance around the topic. He straight up said Diddy was running with a crew that included Oprah, Harvey Weinstein, and Jeffrey Epstein. Yeah. Let that sink in. That's not a VIP list. That's a warning label. And Gene wasn't being dramatic. He said these people weren't just bumping shoulders at events. They were tight. Behind-the-scenes parties, off-the-record meetings, shady business moves. It was all connected. Once he said it, people started rewatching the footage, pulling up old pics, and realizing that maybe those hugs and handshakes weren't so innocent after all. Suddenly, that whole Oprah's just being professional excuse, it wasn't hitting the same anymore. The silence, the patterns, it all started to look real calculated. And it ain't just one bodyguard with a grudge. More and more voices, former associates, insiders, and celebs have hinted at the same thing. Take Ludacris, for example. Back in 2005, he went on Oprah's show to promote Crash, a movie that went on to win big. But instead of celebrating the film, Oprah shifted gears and grilled him about his lyrics, especially his use of the N-word. Now here's the shady part. Luda later found out all the parts where he defended his music, edited out, gone, like he never even said it. That's not just censorship. That's narrative control, and people are starting to see that Oprah's version of uplifting voices might come with strings attached. They kept in the heat but cut out his defense. Ludacris was left looking guilty and speechless when that wasn't the case at all. It was a slick edit that changed the whole vibe, and people noticed. And then there's 50 Cent, who didn't bite his tongue one bit. He flat out accused Oprah of pandering to white audiences while leaving the black community out in the cold. He even hit her with the Oreo label, black on the outside, white on the inside. Harsh? Yeah. But it hit a nerve. A lot of folks nodded in silence because, let's be real, while Oprah talks heavy about healing and representation, some of her moves feel more like she's protecting power than protecting her own. And it doesn't stop there. Ice Cube's got a story too. We're talking about a man with decades of influence. Music, movies, politics, you name it. But somehow, Oprah never gave him a seat at her table. No spotlight for Barbershop, no nod for Straight Outta Compton, not even a mention for his bold TV project Black. White ... When Cube finally asked why, the answer was cold. His views didn't match the narrative she was crafting. That's when it hit. This wasn't just oversight. This was curation. A platform shaped to fit a specific brand, even if that meant sidelining major black voices. At this point, it's getting harder and harder to chalk it all up to coincidence. Too many stories, too many receipts, too many familiar patterns. And now that Denzel's reportedly calling it out, people are really starting to dig into the layers of Oprah's empire, not just the sparkle and success, but the shadows tucked underneath it. Even Michael Jackson once opened the gates of Neverland just for her. He trusted her, gave her one of the most intimate interviews of his life. And now, that moment's being rewatched under a whole new light. Michael Jackson let Oprah into his world, deep into his private space, a place barely anyone ever got to see. That interview became legendary. For years, Oprah called it iconic, a symbol of their bond. But after Michael passed, everything flipped. Oprah made a move that stunned fans everywhere. She hosted a televised special featuring two men accusing MJ of abuse. Two men who had already testified in court that nothing ever happened. To many, it wasn't just a betrayal, it felt like she used Michael's name and controversy to crank up her own ratings. People couldn't help but ask, why now? Why go so hard on Michael when the facts were still murky and both sides hadn't been weighed evenly? Critics called it out instantly. That whole, it's about awareness explanation, folks weren't buying it. Because if this was really about justice, then why didn't Oprah come just as hard at Harvey Weinstein? Why didn't she put the same spotlight on the ones she hugged on red carpets or partnered with behind closed doors? That's where things started to feel selective. And then there's the wild case of John of God. Oprah introduced him to the world as this miraculous healer from Brazil. She hyped him up as someone who channeled divine powers to help people heal their deepest wounds. She promoted him on her platform like he was sent from above. But the truth? It was horrifying. This man was later exposed as a predator, running an actual human trafficking ring. He was chaining women, forcing them to give birth, and selling their babies on the black market. Yeah, that's not healing, that's straight up evil. And Oprah had handed him her stamp of approval. That's when people started questioning everything, her judgment, her circle, and who she chooses to protect or expose. So what did Oprah do when the headlines about John of God exploded across the world? She vanished. No statement, no apology, no accountability. She quietly scrubbed every mention of him from her platforms like he never existed. Just like that, poof, hands washed, story erased, and she moved right along. That disappearing act? It's become a pattern folks can't unsee. Oprah stands tall with someone when it fits her brand. But when they crash and burn, she ghosts the mess like it was never her business. And if the moment can elevate her status, she's front and center. It's like she's curating a museum of influence, only showcasing what benefits her image. But her judgment's been questioned way before this. Remember her elite South African school for girls? It was celebrated worldwide as a symbol of opportunity and hope. But when one of the staff was caught abusing students in the dorms, Oprah went quiet. No transparency, no strong public response. Nothing close to the energy she brings when promoting empowerment. People expected leadership. What they got was silence. And then came Seal, the Grammy-winning singer, posted a bold message on Instagram aimed directly at Oprah. He accused her of knowing about Harvey Weinstein's predatory ways for years and keeping her mouth shut. The post blew up. But just 5 days later, Seal got hit with a battery charge, one that mysteriously disappeared soon after. That timing? Way too suspicious for folks to ignore. It sparked new rumors. Does Oprah have that kind of pull, the kind that makes problems or people disappear? Even Cat Williams jumped in, loud and unfiltered. He said Oprah plays chess with people's reputations and isn't afraid to silence folks who get too bold or too real. And now, people are listening closer than ever. What's becoming clear is this. Behind the polished smiles and spiritual sound bites, Oprah's empire looks more like a fortress. One where power isn't just flaunted, it's guarded at all costs. She's not just managing a brand, she's controlling a whole image, down to the last detail. And then came Maui. Wildfires ripped through the island, destroying homes, lives, and entire communities. But somehow Oprah's sprawling properties? Totally untouched. While locals lost everything, her land stayed safe. But what really had people heated? Instead of reaching into her own pockets despite sitting on hundreds of millions in real estate, she launched a fundraiser asking everyday people to donate. It wasn't just a bad look, it was a loud message. Protect the brand even if others are suffering. That moment felt like a turning point. The compassion queen asking the struggling public to chip in while she stood on generational wealth? Yeah, people felt that. So when someone as respected and reserved as Denzel Washington reportedly starts questioning her integrity, it hits different. It's not just gossip anymore, it's something that's forcing people to look again. Maybe, just maybe, the real story about Oprah has been hiding in plain sight all along. If you're still watching, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, because this rabbit hole runs deep, and you won't want to miss what's coming next.